Welcome to the Civil War Digital Digest. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about aprons, particularly women's aprons. And I'm here with Jackie Jacobs, who is the owner of Past Reflections Reproductions, who for over 30 years has been collecting original items and reproducing them and creating patterns which are all for sale. And I appreciate, Jackie, you bringing some of your originals in to share with us. Now, when I think of an apron, I think of a very utility type item that's meant to get dirty and maybe torn and worn out, tossed aside. But looking at this table, I think you're going to tell me a little bit different on that.
Well, precisely. They are really very intricately decorated if they're a fancy apron, or they are very utilitarian like this one back here.
And this is an original
This is the original out of the collection that we drafted our pattern from. The pattern is a very easily made garment for beginning sewers.
What are some of the details?
This particular apron dates from about 1860 to about 1867. The width of the fabric is 26 inches from selvage to selvage, so that's one of the ways that I can date this apron. It has a small pocket in the back. It has the nice little shaped pinner front, and it's gathered toward the center on the apron. It doesn't come all the way down to the hem of the garment, so that way, you can kind of understand that this one might not be a full utility apron, but something that would be used in just your everyday type of wear.
Okay. Now we also talk a lot about materials and construction when we're thinking about reproductions and originals, and I'm seeing a variety of materials here.
Yes, and that's one of the things. A lot of people think the aprons need to be made out of just a white muslin or out of a homespun type of fabric. I do have a beautiful white muslin apron right here. It's a little bit fancier than what most white muslin aprons are. It's dated 1863, and it has the lady's name on it.
What a find to be able to get something that was embroidered.
Exactly. And it could have been a special gift, either a wedding gift or something like that. It also has what is a lot of people would mistake as rickrack all the way around the apron. That is actually folded tape lace, and it is a very difficult type of process to do because you have to make sure that everything is folded precisely and stitched precisely. It's all hand stitched down. The outside edge does have your wavy braid that would have been purchased from your general store.
Okay.
The next apron over is a fancier apron. Mm-hmm. It is a black silk taffeta, and it has tambour work embroidery on it, which I've scanned that and I digitized it, and we reproduced this apron for sale. And it's a sewing apron from England. And it has the little bag on there to be putting the sewing accessories or knitting or for your crochet, so that you could go and visit somebody or have someone to your home and sit and visit and still have your sewing tools handily accessible.
What about this one here?
That one is an Irish linen. It's beautifully made. It has embroidered shamrocks all over the bottom of it and at the top of the pinner apron. I would imagine that this may have been a bright green, and with laundering in the lye soap and things, it could have faded to this pale blue.
You can see up here some of it's almost white now.
It's almost white, yes, exactly. It could have been a little bit fancier apron for, say, a housekeeper or a head housekeeper, or maybe it was a lady's who owned a farm or what have you. Could have been her fancy Sunday apron, because I don't find a lot of staining on this apron. Okay. So then we have our wool apron. In some of the research that I've done, and this one is documented, I've got the paper on here that came right on the apron. This one is dated 1843, and it is a child's apron. And it has your crewel embroidery all the way around and on the waistband. And it's made of wool, and it has a polished cotton lining on it. Now, my assumption on wool, because I've read in a lot of diaries and journals where children's aprons would be done in wool or a really someone, a scullery maid or something like that, would have a wool apron. And I believe that would be because it would not catch fire as
Okay.
easily as cotton or silk.
That makes sense.
That,
And I imagine maybe this could even have been a first attempt at sewing and embroidery, maybe.
it probably was. And her crewel work is very nice, considering that this was probably an apron for about a 6 or an 8-year-old girl. So, and it's probably her first sewing project that she was to do. And it says in the paperwork here who the apron belonged to and everything like that. So
Now, as far as the one behind us and the Irish linen, I can make sense that it's meant to protect the clothing for whether they're washing or cooking or something along those lines. What's really the purpose behind having an apron for sewing?
those are showy aprons for when you're inviting guests into your home or going to someone's house. That was one of the ways that ladies would display how wealthy they were or how affluent their family was by how fancy their aprons were. And this goes all the way back to the 18th century. So aprons are actually a status symbol in some parts, and it's also very important to understand that it wasn't just women that wore aprons. Men also wore aprons, and they're generally in your occupational photographs that we find. You find butchers and blacksmiths and farriers. Anybody who does heavy work will have either a leather or a heavy canvas apron or some type of apron that would protect their clothing.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you for, again, bringing these in and showing them to us. And thank you for watching another episode of the Civil War Digital Digest. Always remember to check that comments area below, and we'll provide links out to our research page with additional information. And then, of course, Past Reflections website if you're interested in some of the patterns such as this pin or apron. Also, please remember to like the episode if you enjoyed it and subscribe so you can get updates on new content.